Hello, and welcome back to Listen If You're Lonely. I hope you're doing well. My name's Helen, and this is a show I started back in 2021, and I'm now trying very hard to do a better job of 3.5 years later. So, this is week 3 of reaching out into the dark, and it's been nice to have a couple people reach back. Comments are always so nice to get. It's just really cool to know that my words matter to other people. So to everyone who has commented on my Spotify or YouTube or anything, thank you. It is just so cool. And I feel like I'm starting to get a hang of this again, getting back into the routine. Yeah, so it's all very exciting. So, barring any screw-ups, this episode will come out on Valentine's Day. Wherever you are, if you're celebrating with a loved one, with friends, or alone, I hope you enjoy a day dedicated to human connection and love. If you can, you should try to go out of your way to tell or show the people you love how much you love them. I bet it'll make their day. And in the comments, I'd love to hear about any plans you have for the day. And speaking of plans, here's a little update on my anti-hibernation goals. To refresh, they are 1, every week from now until at least the beginning of summer, I'm going to try to schedule 1 movement activity. 2, also every week, I'm going to try to schedule an activity with friends. And 3, every month, I'm going to try to do at least one thing where I can meet new people. So, January's was a local brewery hosting an event for Swifties. I figured it would be a lot of other women around my age, and, we'd have at least one thing in common. I don't really have any updates on the movement front. It is still really, really cold outside. I've gone for about 1 walk in the past 2 weeks because it was so cold, and I walked for like half an hour before my toes went numb. So, still working on that one. As for activities with friends, February is a pretty busy month for me, hosting-wise. My birthday's in February, and there's obviously Valentine's Day. So, for my birthday, I threw a Spider-Man themed party with a couple friends, and I'm planning on hosting a quiet, casual little Valentine's Day thing on the 15th. The party was a lot of fun. I was the Spider-Man Homecoming version of Peter Parker, so I got the Midtown High sweatshirt, and I got like web shooters from Amazon, and it was a lot of fun. We had a Gwen Stacy, Eddie Brock, the Vulture, Jonah Jameson, MJ, Spider-Gwen. It was a lot of fun. For the third goal, which was going to the Swiftie Day, I did it. I would rate it a 1 out of 10. It was just not what I expected. I got all dressed up, put on my cardigan and my Moon and Saturn earrings because I'm a folklore girly, and I drove over to this bar and I paid for parking, and as soon as I got out of the car, I was like, oh, I don't think I like this music. And I really just did not enjoy the cover band, and there was really nowhere to sit, and it was just really loud and overwhelming. And I should have gone earlier in the day when they had some friendship bracelet making and adoptable cats. That's a lot more my speed. So now I know. That was a bit of a wash, but at least I tried. I told my sister about it, and she said there's no amount of money anyone could pay her to go to something like that alone. So I guess it is pretty cool that I was willing to put myself out there like that. And hopefully February goes better. My event for that month is either going to be joining a book club at my local library or joining a silent book club. If you've never heard of that, I don't blame you, they're not super common. But basically, everyone in the club meets up like once a month, talks about whatever it is they're reading. It's not like a traditional book club where everyone's reading the same thing. And after, I think, half an hour to an hour, everyone kind of goes off into their own corner and just sits and reads by themselves. And after an hour of that, everyone can either rejoin and have more conversation, or they can go back to reading and stay as long as they want. So I've been meaning to try it out for forever, and I think February will be the month where I pull the trigger, hopefully. So, given the holiday, today's topic is romantic relationships in your 20s, aka the pursuit of connection. In the last episode, I said I had gone bowling recently, and that was actually a first date. That's all I will say about that. Regardless, the topic of dating and romantic relationships has been on my mind a lot recently. And not just because it's February, but two of my closest friends are in new relationships, and I haven't been in one in a while. My previous relationship ended last May, and it took a while before I was ready to start dating again. We had been long distance, and having all of our connection be through a phone or a computer screen, aside from the occasional weekend trip where we met in the middle, it made me feel more alone than ever. Couldn't bring my partner with me on outings with my friends. We couldn't do casual things like grocery shop together or go for a walk. And while we were together, almost all the time that I wasn't in class or at work was spent in my bedroom with the door closed, on the phone with them. Even thinking about it now, I still feel sad about it. We cared for each other a lot, but the connection we were able to have just wasn't enough for either of us. I think we both cried every time we did manage to have a weekend together because it just hurt so bad to leave at the end. When the relationship ended, I took the summer to heal and got back on the dating apps in the fall. And listen, I hate the apps. Most people do. They're useful, but so much of the connection is superficial, and it often feels like you have to act so quickly, otherwise you'll lose their attention. We're all bouncing around from one shiny object to the next, and forming anything real is like a Herculean task. That being said, both of the relationships I've been in have been because of the apps. I've met people other ways, like parties, but they always fizzled out before anything real happened. I'm someone who's a bit reserved, especially at first, and I've been told I'm difficult to read. And I just live inside my head, and I don't always know how to express what's going on in my inner life to other people. I'm also probably asexual, meaning I just don't feel physical attraction to people. The only kind of connection I ever make with people is emotional. And going back to the whole being reserved thing, you see how that becomes an issue? Weirdly, though, I tend to romanticize situations and people. If I hit it off with someone and I think they're pretty, I feel like I've caught lightning in a bottle. I imagine how our last names would sound together after, like, the second date. And maybe it's because I read too many romance novels as a teen. Maybe it's because I love rom-coms. Maybe it's because my favorite singer is Taylor Swift. Whatever it is, it doesn't lead to real connections. People can never live up to the version of them I create in my head because it's so far removed from reality. It's a two-dimensional movie character, just nothing but a flat projection. And yet, I would do anything to keep them around. I hide away parts of myself that I imagine they won't like, and I exaggerate the parts I think they will like. I become a chameleon. Do you want funny and laid back? How about an artistic, cool girl? How about sophisticated and intelligent? I'll be whatever version of me you like the most. And then, somewhere along the way, I realize I'm being inauthentic, but by then I've packed myself into this little box so tightly I don't know how to get back out, and I start feeling desperate to escape. And then, inevitably, they do something that shows me that they're just a normal human being, not a movie character, and the illusion breaks, and I run. Have you ever heard Taylor Swift's song The Bolter from her newest album? The first time I heard it, I thought, this is me. If you haven't heard it, you absolutely should. So go listen, and then come back later. I mean, you're probably already on Spotify or Apple Music, right? But if you refuse to do so, here's a summary. The Bolter is about a girl who once almost drowned by falling through the ice into freezing water. Stay with me now, this is relevant, I promise. So the Bolter grows up, and she finds that she really likes how it feels to have boys fall in love with her. But every time they start to get a little close, start to really know her, she feels like she's drowning, and then she runs. And the running feels like freedom, like the first breath of air after being plunged underwater, or something like that. And you know, one time my sister said to me, you always want to be in a relationship until you're in one. Her words hit me like a ton of bricks because she was absolutely right. My whole life I've been a runner. A bolter, if you will. At the first sign of trouble, I'm abandoning ship. I never know how to wait out the storm because I just can't imagine things ever getting better. I think it's an anxiety thing. I think my therapist would call it catastrophizing. I just want to pause and say I realize that I'm painting myself in a really unflattering light here. I hope you're not thinking, man, you sound like you really suck. I'm just trying to be totally honest here, no holds barred, and then I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. And I do know where my faults lie, and I am working on getting better. That's why I have the aforementioned therapist, and I've also been challenging myself to stick it out with people, even if they aren't absolutely perfect on the first or second date. Now I have to learn how to balance my gut instinct about people with the need to give them a fair chance. A few months ago, my friends and I were waiting in line at a bar and struck up a conversation with some guys standing behind us. Kinda perfectly, it worked out that there were 3 of us and 3 of them, and we all kinda naturally paired up. I thought the guy I was talking to was cute, and we had a good conversation, and that's usually enough for me to hop on the romanticization train. Got his number, we started talking, and eventually we went on a date, and it was fine. We went to a bar, but I don't drink, and he was driving, so we sat there and drank water, and he wanted to, hold me? So we sat on a couch, and he wrapped his arm around me, and if we wanted to look at each other, I had to crane my neck, and then our faces were 2 inches apart, and I was not a fan. I really didn't like it at all, but I was trying something new. At the end of the night, we kissed in the elevator ride down, and it was sweet. We went on a second date a couple days later, and by then I was getting a weird feeling, the urge to run. But I always get that feeling, and I wanted to stick it out. So I saw him a third time, and then it fizzled out. My roommate, who I was with at the bar that night, also hit it off with the guy she was talking to, one of the friends of my date, and she started dating him. Through them, I later found out that my date had a lot of red flags I hadn't been made aware of, so this time, running would have been justified. But I didn't know it because my gut feeling is the same every time, whether the red flags are real or just in my head. And maybe it isn't bad to be a little bit picky, to not settle. Everyone my age is moving cities, starting or changing careers, and just trying to figure out who they are and what they want out of the rest of their life. Taking this time to really figure it out, mostly through trial and error, isn't a bad thing. My aunt didn't get married until she was in her early 30s, and she likes to say that she had to kiss a lot of frogs before finding a prince. So I think I owe myself a little grace. I'm still figuring it out, and so is everyone else. We're all going to make mistakes along the way. And I do have something to confess. Sometimes I don't know if I want any of it. A relationship, a partner, a future where my life is intertwined with someone else's. I hate that idea that a partner is the end-all be-all of human connection. My friends and family are so important to me, and I can't imagine one single person replacing that. This might just be the part of me that's still a teenage girl talking, though. It still feels like yesterday that my dad got into a relationship with his now girlfriend, even though it was 8 years ago. Back then, my dad was my whole world. I didn't really have friends in high school, at least not ones who were ever willing to make plans with me outside of school, and I didn't have a mom anymore either. But my dad was always there. Every Friday night, I would walk down into the basement and settle on the couch beside him. He would switch from whatever he was watching to one of our shows. We had a couple that we would collect in the DVR over the course of the week. Outrageous Acts of Science, House Hunters International. Here I am, 14 years old, judging rich people's homes with my 50-year-old dad. And I loved it. Even today, when I need a quiet place to go to in my mind, I picture myself walking down into that basement. I can still feel the corduroy fabric of the couch under my fingers and the warmth of a tie blanket on my lap. I still see the blue light of the TV cutting shadows on my dad's face. as we established in the last episode, I have a lot of love for the past. And then my dad met his girlfriend, and suddenly he was gone on Friday nights, and I watched TV alone. And believe me, I'm so happy he found someone, because I never ever wanted him to be alone. But in my child's mind, he had me, and I didn't get why that wasn't good enough. I didn't get how he could so quickly shirk our tradition. I don't know. Call me bitter, but I think that one of the worst feelings is when someone you love gets into a relationship and you get to watch as they eagerly hand over the time they used to spend with you to their new partner. Almost every single person in my life has done that at some point, and I've never been able to handle it gracefully. Often, once the honeymoon phase ends, they remember that other people exist and the friendship resumes as normal. But sometimes it doesn't, and I've lost friends because of that. I realize that it's just a part of life, but I do wish for a world where there is no one kind of love, romantic, familial, or platonic, that gets prioritized over the others. I think an important aspect of why a lot of people are lonely is because romantic partners are supposed to play so many roles in our lives. They're your best friend, and your confidant, and your family, and it's a lot of hats to have to wear at once. And I think it's hard for a lot of people to be someone's entire world. And frankly, I don't think they should have to be. And I do want to acknowledge that this is a very Western experience. There are many parts of the world in which the family you come from is still just as important as the family you make when you get married. There are drawbacks to that version of things too, of course, but that's not what we're really here to dissect. What we're here to dissect is me and my jumbled up feelings about relationships, okay? So now that my roommate is dating the guy she met at the bar, she's gone a lot. And it's still pretty new, so they're spending as much time together as they can. And my best friend just went on a very promising couple of first dates with someone that'll hopefully turn into something good. But that meant that last Saturday, I realized that I had no one to call. And it was like I was 14 all over again. So I wonder if that's why I'm trying so hard right now to get into a relationship of my own. Why I let my roommate set me up with her boyfriend's friend. In the past few weeks, I've been on 3 first dates. I find Hinge endlessly overwhelming, but I've been doing my best to just ask people out instead of letting the conversation hit a dead end. But then the question remains, do I actually want a relationship, or do I just want a friend? And I don't know. Maybe both? But the question remains, do I actually want a relationship, or do I just want a friend? Maybe both? Hopefully I'll get a clearer picture of what I need over the next few months as I make new connections of different kinds. And for now, I'll just sit here on Valentine's Day with a box of drugstore chocolates and that old friend we already know. And that's why you're here, right? But we'll get through it. We'll be okay. I've got a lot of faith in us. Well, that's all I have for today. You can follow me on Instagram at listenifyou'relonely, no apostrophe. I also have a YouTube channel for the podcast, but it's just the same audio for now. Anyways, this has been Listen If You're Lonely. Thanks for spending some time with me tonight, and happy Valentine's Day, or Galentine's Day, or Anti-Valentine's Day, or Happy Friday, whatever it is you're celebrating. I hope that you feel a little less lonely now, wherever you are. See you next time.